Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show, which goes live every single day, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. GMT, every day of the week, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to ideally make money on the internet. We have a cracking show today with you. Got all kinds of news to get into in just a little bit. I'm joined, of course, by my legendary co-host, Legendary, and I am Bchek, your host for the show today. We're going to get into all kinds of stuff, but before we do that, just a reminder, nothing that we do or say here is financial advice. This modern market is exceptionally risky. We do not know anything for sure. Please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, I hope you are doing better on this Monday, 11th of December. I am severely jet lagged, having just touched down no more than a few hours ago in London from Miami. How are you doing?
Well, welcome back. Hope you had a safe flight. I'm doing well. I'm pretty tired, but I'm pretty tired. Like I went out on a Saturday, I went out yesterday. That's very, very unusual. Not only going out, but going out twice on a weekend and on a Sunday. But definitely had to do it. Karma, who I'm co-hosting the ZTX Spaces with, was visiting Vienna, so definitely wanted to meet up, and we ended up going to some Christmas markets, getting a bit of mulled wine, and I'm just not used to stay up late when I'm outside and actually on having drinks, having fresh air, and not watching a screen, which is something that I'm more familiar with. So outdoor activities definitely get me more tired than watching a screen, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep, it can be tiring as you go out. One of the things I realized as well in Miami once when we were doing the show and doing all the other stuff is that, damn, it's so exhausting when you are doing the work at the same time, as well as doing the socializing, as well as kind of attending events at the same time. So it was truly exhausting. However, I do want to say unbelievably worthwhile and enjoyable. Want to shout out a few people I can see in the show with us, Legendary. You might be surprised to know how many of these people along the top row of listeners who I managed to meet up with. Steve, NFT Bark, managed to have a great lunch with him and Captain a couple of days ago. That was so fun, and hung out more at both the D Gods event and the Rug Radio House a couple of days later. That was so fun. Managed to meet Rocky, who is a resident ordinals expert, absolutely super knowledgeable. I didn't realize the extent of it on everything going on in the ordinals ecosystem. I remember I shouted him out on Friday, I think, as well. But yeah, that was really good. English as well in the top row. It was so good to finally meet English, who is super prominent in the Little Nouns ecosystem. Of course, that's where I first got to know him, but also in that ordinals ecosystem, super knowledgeable there too. Another shout out to Curtis, who has been with us a few times as well. Managed to meet him at the D Gods house. Managed to talk all about the coffee projects that he's working on the side. So super fun to meet them. And yeah, so many other people who met over the past week or so. Really great to connect with our listeners specifically, but in general, just a great time. Really fun to be there.
Okay, so I gotta say, up until this point, I managed to go through Art Basel or going through missing Art Basel without having any kind of FOMO whatsoever. But that now completely changed. Those are all amazing people. Would have loved to be there and meet them along with you. So thank you for giving me FOMO after the event.
Absolutely no problem. Absolutely no problem with that. Thoroughly worthwhile. And do you know what? Just really looking forward to the schedule moving forward for the kind of the in real life locations that we're going to be doing things next year. So we can run it all back and do it again. That's the case for that. Let's get into the rest of the show then, Legendary, in just a second. In fact, let's just get into it. As always, we have the headlines and the price action, which is in the snapshot, which is pinned up top. It goes out every single day. Please do like it if you find that it brings you some value. So, starting with some price action, we had a bit of a dump across crypto in the last 24 hours. We had Bitcoin down 3% at 42K, ETH down 4% at 2.2, Solana down 3% at 69. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think this all happened on the course while I was on my flight. So you can tell me if I'm wrong in a second, Legendary, but I think these things dumped a bit further and then have recovered quite quickly since, but we'll get into that in just a second. In terms of NFTs, we have Bored Apes at 29.3, Pudgy's down almost 7% at 11.3, been super volatile around the announcement, which we're going to get into over the weekend, but I still think that's pretty damn good at the moment for the Pudgy Penguins. They'll be super happy with that. Azuki's are at 6.4, Mutants are at 5.7, up 3%. Little Pudgies at 1.1, up 1.5%. D-Gods at 3.2. Creeps up 20% at 3.1. Another big move, a Sugartown up almost 55% at 0.6. So yeah, a lot of movement around on the NFT side. Getting into the headlines for today, we have Pudgy Penguins announcing Web3 gaming world, Pudgy World, to huge fanfare. Floor price moves up to 11 ETH. And number 2, Rug Radio announced merger with Decrypt and partnership with L2 Arbitrum. Farouk explained that both Rug Radio and Decrypt will live under the umbrella of a new parent company that is innovating ad tech and creator distribution in ways never before seen. To top it all off, we also announced a partnership with Arbitrum, where we'll be building our tech stack to bring the future of decentralized media, ad tech, and user rewards to life. That is super interesting. A couple of top sales from around the space in EtherRock. I guess we're at this point in the cycle, and EtherRock sells for 150 ETH. That's $350,000. And a Ric Flair Pepe sells for 65 ETH. That is $146,000. Some big flexing there on chain, buying the ultimate flex, I think, which is the EtherRock. That's the ultimate flex because people know it's so dumb to own one. But you still can if you wish to for the cool price of 150 ETH. Those are the headlines, Legendary. That is the price action. What numbers are standing out to you? Where do you want to go to first?
I definitely love to see the move in Sugartown. I don't know if you've seen the reason for it, or at least what I quite think the reason for that pump is. It was Beanie actually posting about it, and Beanie, who came back after a long hiatus, kind of said that he's not gonna post his buys anymore, and started changing that a bit. But this, I would say, was his first project that he did an in-depth analysis in old Beanie style, why it is the most mispriced NFT asset that we've ever seen yet, and explaining his hypothesis, and basically send the Sugartown floor from 0.4 to at peak 0.7 ETH within like 1-2 hours after posting that. And
I mean,
I do have to say that did benefit from that. I have notifications on for him, and as soon as I saw that post, I was like taking out the ledger, buying a couple off the floor. That's definitely gonna move after a post from him.
that's interesting that you had that conviction to do that just based off a tweet, because it's not necessarily been the case that he's been doing that for a long period of time, right? So it's not.
But that's the point. He made people money with Pixel Vault. He made people money with Wolf Game. There's still so many people who had profited massively from him, and still, like, wishing for quote unquote the old Beanie to come back. And just looking at his engagement compared to some of the other influencers from the old cycle, his always was still top notch. So I was like, if he's gonna post about something, like the first opportunity he's gonna mention, if he's ever gonna share one again, is gonna impact people, and they're gonna sweep just based off that old track record that he had in the past cycle, combined with the engagement and reach that he gets.
I mean, I love the thinking. I love the thinking that you applied there. All I'm saying is that that was a long time ago. It was a long time ago that all of that happened. And I agree with you that there were people in the woodworks coming out, like, because I think I even commented under one of Tyler's posts saying that, oh, wow, like I didn't know that his tweets were still going to be able to do that. And there's someone who replied to me saying, yeah, I made so much money off Beanie's calls in 2021. And that's one of the reasons why I think people are pretty excited for that. So that is super interesting. A quick point on that before I want to ask you on the crypto move, Legendary, and whether that dump did go deeper, whether it's recovered. Do you think we're out of that or not? We've kind of touched on this before, but just for the people listening in, I've mentioned it to a few other people. Do you think that Beanie account is still the Beanie that we knew in 2021?
I think so. At least if from I would think so. At least based on the DMs that I've exchanged with him occasionally back then and now, not in super frequent contact. That would be exaggerated to say, but I would think so. I mean, it could still be someone else writing that front facing, but I don't really think that.
Interesting. Yeah, I've been under the impression that there could be another person involved or multiple people. I mean, maybe he's in charge of the account, it's just other people drafting those tweets. Because I think the writing style has changed to some extent, and that's just something I always have in the back of my mind. So I'm just putting that out there because it's something I've thought, wanted to share it. Don't know if it's correct or not. He could still very well be in charge of the majority of the account and or all of it, but something been on my mind. Any final reflections on that, Legendary?
Interesting. Wasn't on my mind at all. No final reflections on that. However, to answer your second question on the larger crypto move that you well, fortunate enough to not follow. I got home from going out yesterday quite late, saw ETH dumping. I was like, okay, that's a beautiful time to go to sleep. At my 3 a.m., I think it was, it kind of reached its bottom at 2200 for ETH at least. It was, and as you said, like speaking from a European perspective, in the morning, my morning it already started to recover and kind of climbed at least back up to where is it now? 2,250-ish. So did climb up a bit. Personally, not worried about it. Didn't see any negative news, didn't see any negative ETF news or anything like that. So I'm not worried about the 10% flash crash.
So what was the cause then, in your opinion?
I have absolutely no clue.
Yeah, Solana went from 74 down to 68. Seems to have recovered to about 69. So seems to have bounced quite nicely. But yeah, it's still down a little bit across the board. Do you think people are just getting a little bit ahead of themselves in general?
Could be someone taking profits, could be some leverage trading, but I didn't check for that. So I would just be speculating and can't really add anything of value on that.
Sure. Okay. So let's get into that's, I think, a useful little quick summary on some of the headlines, some of the interesting numbers going on in the space. Let's get into the main headlines for the day then, and get to which one first do you want to go to, Legendary? It's up. Let's go throw to you.
Shall we do Pudgies first?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do Pudgies, and then we'd love to hear from Sam's thoughts on Pudgies as well. I've seen some of his tweets going out on the violent rise in price over there. But Legendary, why don't you set it up for us first?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick question: that have you been at the event where that was announced, or?
Interestingly, no, because the thing about Miami is that they have these two sides where you can be on South Beach and then you can be in Wynwood, and there's this bridge that you have to go across. And basically, once you're on one side, it's so difficult to keep getting across to the other side. And I was on one side, it had already taken me like an hour to get to that side. I just couldn't get back over to the other side to get to the Pudgy one.
Gotcha. Fair enough. So yeah, we had the discussion about Pudgies quite often last week. Will they announce a token? Will they announce something more gaming related? Turned out to be a more gaming related announcement. the Pudgies announced Pudgy World, or the alpha of Pudgy World, to be more specific, which is going to be powered by ZK Sync, and it's going to release in the first quarter of 2024. They did come out with a 2-minute trailer, and which is quite cute, and a bit of extra explanation in terms of what's going on. So just highlighting the key points of that. The Pudgy World vision, as they describe it, is pretty simple. They talk about an open world storytelling experience that is fun, that's playable by millions, that is happening on chain. They also announced that from now until the public alpha launch, that again will be in Q1 2024, they will be testing the experience with the Pudgy community. They will also have a quest for the alpha that is to be done. And the main point for me was how they position the Pudgy world in basically all of their within the entire ecosystem, by saying it is the digital experience that closes the loop for physical products by having Pudgy world and merchandise that are easily accessible and marketed to the masses. We serve as the first NFT and blockchain touchpoint for the public, which again, very, very strongly goes into their vision of how to onboard people onto blockchain. And adding to that, from the perspective of the Pudgy toy experience, you with the toy, again, you can scan the QR code, you can make an account, you can redeem the trades that come with that specific toy, customize your forever Pudgy penguin, and then use that Pudgy in Pudgy World Alpha, from what I've read, as a playable character, thus merging the physical and the digital world of Pudgies into one.
A lot of stuff there. Really, a lot of a great variety of announcements, all part of the Pudgy world. First question to you, then want to throw to Sam, is which one of these announcements do you think was the most exciting? Was there a particular aspect, or do you think that just all in totality was a good thing? What's your overall impression?
Overall impression is I love the production quality and the storytelling of the trailer. I actually think it is one of the best trailers in terms of the storytelling we've seen so far coming from a Web3 project, which says a lot because we've seen some pretty good product. And to me, the biggest point is definitely the positioning of the Pudgy world in the ecosystem. As you get the toy, you are onboarded to play Pudgy World Alpha, and by that, you get onboarded on having your first like Web3/blockchain on-chain experience.
Interesting. Yeah, that definitely, it was a really good trailer. If people haven't watched it yet, I'm sure they have already, but I'd encourage people to take a look. Really awesome storytelling experience. Would love to throw to Sam here, Director of Research at Proof, go-to data source for all things NFTs. Sam, welcome to the stage with us. Hope you're doing well. What were your thoughts on everything going on with Pudgies at the moment?
I'm still a little bit confused. I'm not gonna lie. Like to me, I shouldn't say confused. I to me, as someone who was kind of like sitting in Hong Kong, just kind of watching things come in, like it didn't feel like there's anything all that like dramatically new or dramatically like holy shit, let's pump this to 12 ETH right now. That came out of that, like it seemed a little out of sync. Because everything that Legendary just mentioned are things we kind of already knew, like connecting the digital with the physical, like that's something they've been incredibly good at throughout. That the toys you bought were going to link you to the digital world, like that's all been true. Like a great trailer, like great trailers are. I don't think any Azuki's like the best in the business at trailers as well. Like the character. So none of it really like jumped out to me. I just think like right now there's just this halo effect around Luca and Pudgies where like there's so much positive energy. I'm sure the production value of being there was incredible. Like all like the Cyruses and the EB7s of the world are just, Spencer, like all these guys are so in their corner that there's just like whatever they do, it's just kind of like holy shit. And I'm sure it wasn't in presence, but I don't think when I listened to what Legendary just reeled off, like relative to what we already have known about this project for the past 6 months, like there's nothing to me that's like, oh, that explains a massive move. It just feels like this is just like my feed is just full of you gotta love Pudgies. Like
Mm.
Everyone loves Pudgies, and if you don't love Pudgies, then you're just not like part of like the Web3 movement. And I feel like that is what it is. And I also think like there's all this talk of the token coming up, and again, like Memeland has a $3 billion token. Like it's just kind of mind-boggling numbers, and the way that it feels like Pudgies have kind of talked about it is like there's no token at our Basel, but if ApeCoin in 2021, they started talking about ApeCoin as early as September of 2021. It did not end up landing until March of 2022. I think it was March, maybe it was, yeah, I think it was March or April. But just the anticipation of ApeCoin and that carrot and that possibility, like made the projects, made the whole Yuga ecosystem do incredibly well, and the floors rallied literally for 6 or 7 months, like that anticipation. And I feel like we're teeing up a similar situation here with Pudgies, where I mean, even better with Pudgies because it's not even like announced as like a rumor yet. It's just kind of this thing that like is saying like it's not happening now. It's not happening in our Basel. End of comment. But it like keeps people. I don't know. So that's a bunch of thoughts. But if I'm looking at this whole dynamic, I think that feels a lot more floor price pumping than anything that I saw as an announcement.
Yeah, thanks for all of those insights. I think I would agree with you. There's a certain amount that the production value can do, but the fact that the token is, it's still out there in the ether, right? Like, as you say, it's not been confirmed. It's not been, well, maybe it has been denied to a point, but left the door open in some way. Just wanted to ask your thoughts, kind of reflecting on all of the rumors over the last week, because it was getting quite strong. And I saw a couple of your tweets about it in the run up to the Saturday event. What was your general, like, kind of overall evaluation on that, the potential token launch? I know we spoke about it on the show quite a lot, and lots of people were quite adamant that they don't need to do one. And my point was always, yeah, I know. I mean, technically, no one needs to do one. No one needs to do one. Literally, no one. But the question is, will the humans in the team decide that when the market becomes favorable and conditions become really positive, would they be able to turn the token down and not build it out for their Pudgy universe when the market conditions would be super favorable for them to do that? What are your thoughts, Sam?
I mean, first of all, I'd say right now the market conditions are favorable. People keep saying like when the bull comes, like we are in a bull market. Like I have no question about that. Like meme coin just launched at a $3 billion valuation, and like it went up. I'm sorry, fully diluted or whatever, but it was at like 1.5 and went up to 3. Like there, yeah, the Jito drop went up to like $2 to $3 billion. Like we are in the bull market. Like this is not something that we have to wait for. I mean, I think Luca is like a great operator. I think I actually think he is acting in like an incredibly honest, straightforward way. I think he cares immensely about this project. I think he has a very long-term vision. But I also, right now, Pudgy Penguins like literally could not be doing any better. And they have a $250 million floor-based market cap. $250 million floor-based market cap. Meme coin has a $3 billion market cap, right? Like there's something, or not market cap, fully diluted valuation. Like there is something that the coin market is willing to pay, liquidity that whole group of buyers is willing to that NFTs just don't do. I mean, meme coin's fully diluted valuation is higher than CryptoPunks. So there's something about the technicals of that market that I can't imagine like even with his vision that like would be, and if you layer on that all the goodwill about Pudgies, like I have a hard time seeing Luca like being able to resist that over the long term. I don't know Luca very well personally, but it's just like there's just so much money there right now, and this is like an even better brand than Memeland. Like, so I would think eventually it would come. But I have no, and so I just can't imagine that down the road that temptation it is all that easy to resist, and they'll find a way to filter it into what they're doing. Would be my guess, but again,
yeah,
I don't have insider information.
Yeah, of course.
Stuff like that.
Of course, yeah. Like, and that's the exact thing I think what I was trying to impress on the show a couple of days ago, or maybe a week or so ago, where it's like, I don't know, my reading of it is more like a human one. It's like, will the team be able to say no to that coin market, which, as you say, is so much more liquid and can reach such valuations that the other market just can't get to? So yeah, I take your point. And the other interesting point I just want to draw out from what you said, then want to hear what Legendary's thoughts are on this, is the idea that, you know, their goodwill is, they've built up so much goodwill at the moment and they're doing so well. It's like, can you be doing any better? It's almost like you might want to keep the token in your back pocket for a time where things maybe are not going as well. Like, I wonder whether they need it. And I mean, I guess that's the point that everyone else is saying, right? Like, do they need it? Maybe not. And maybe it's something that you just keep in your back pocket until, like, kind of in a way like Blur with season 3, where it's like, look, we don't need to give this to you. We're only going to do it if anyone starts pulling liquidity. I know those are two very, very different scenarios, but I guess it's just a card that you can keep in your pocket until you really need to lay it down. Legendary, would love to hear your thoughts on everything Sam was putting forward, and that final reflection for me there. And then Kusho has his hand raised too. Would love to hear his thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely want to come back on what Sam said. And I said it on the show last Friday. Like, my thought process was, the team's not going to announce a token. We are, A, as Sam very well said, in a bull market, and B, in a very gaming dominated meta. So the best thing they could do is to have a gaming related announcement. Yes, it is in between like storytelling experience, metaverse, gaming, but it's still a gaming announcement. You can still read it as a gaming announcement. And the gaming meta currently is structured by all the top tier games are doing the token, which hypes everyone up and pumps the floor prices to sometimes even ridiculous levels. So if you now say that Pudgy is going to do a token and you have that gaming announcement, you can still continue with that rumor / narrative / investment hypothesis, whatever, and you don't look stupid at all. And on top of that, as both of you said, the temptation is just massive. So I think that even from the announcement perspective, that run-up makes a lot of sense, because it is, as Sam pointed out, a very similar situation to the Ape run-up to their token launch back in March, April of was it last year? Was it 20? No, last year, not 2021. Yeah, last year. And from that perspective, I think if you judge it based at face value, that yes, this is all the info we already knew, and there's nothing new in that announcement except for like a very, very well done trailer, and that doesn't justify a run up from 6 to 12 ETH. Seeing that the Walmart announcement didn't cause such an effect, absolutely agree with that. But if you go with the token rumor that pumped it, and the token rumor is still a very valid one to now have, and to add it on top of the gaming meta that is the dominating narrative of this run, at least until now, kind of justifies is maybe a too strong word, but kind of explains the run up, and also explains to me why Pudgies haven't dumped on the announcement. Why people are like, oh, that's not a token, I'm just gonna dump it, because you can still keep that narrative well alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes sense, and you're right in that the world, this gaming world that's being created simultaneously with all the other great stuff that they've done already, definitely helps when it comes to imagining how a token would actually work in the ecosystem, right? Because in the absence of that gaming world, maybe that's less less uh, less visible path towards something there. But in this gaming world, I think it becomes a little bit more apparent. Want to throw to Kusho, and then Sam, I think you were coming off mute there. Want to come back to you for your final thoughts on this topic. Kusho first.
Yo, GM, I'm not gonna say I'm a prophet, but like the evidence is quite compelling at this point. Yeah, so what I wanted to drop in on quickly was, if you look back a little bit, a few months ago, we had like super hype driven narratives from like D-Gods, from like Azuki. And I think it's starting to come back again, but for like gaming. The only difference being that for gaming, it's more of a thing where these are projects that have already delivered the thing that they're hyping about, as opposed to when it was the turn of like Azuki and Co. But for cases of projects that are like super large players for this next cycle, like Meme Coin and PUDGY Penguin, it's like if they're going to do a token, it should particularly fit a narrative that is also in line with the brand image. For Meme Coin, dropping a meme coin, a literal meme coin, is actually perfect. And that sits well with meme narratives that come and go at different times. So that's not really dependent on the project itself. For PUDGs, I feel like with gaming related projects coming out, it's going to be likely that we see a token drop, but not yet, especially since they're just kind of doing like the alpha testing right now. So I feel like when the project and PUBG gaming in particular starts going towards maybe like public opening, then we might see something of a token related drop there, just as an incentive for playing the game. Like, you don't want to play a game where there's no rewards, like you're getting tokens or getting points inside the game. And because it's Web3, you expect to be able to use that point outside of the game as well. So it's very likely that a token comes as a result of that as well.
Yeah. So go on.
Let me quickly jump on that, because Kusho said something very, very smart about the incentive expectation to, you know, play a game and get rewarded, which is something that traditional players don't have, but we certainly have in this space. And if you read the announcement, it is in partnership with ZK Sync. So my assumption is it will be, I mean, it's quite obvious, it will be on ZK Sync as a layer 2 solution. And Sam was talking about the goodwill that Pudgies have built. Now imagine a world where you play that experience, you do transactions on ZK Sync, and just by playing the game, you're going to qualify yourself for a ZK Sync airdrop that will happen further down the line. It's not confirmed, but the assumption is it will happen further down the line next year. And if that also builds additional goodwill, you get that airdrop. Oof. And what it also does, it gives the team a lot of strategic freedom, because if their players get a ZK Sync airdrop, which is going to be a good token airdrop, they might not have the pressure to do a PUDGY token if they don't want to do that, because players already got handsomely rewarded by exploring that layer 2 solution, assuming that, as with Starknet, you know, a snapshot has been taken. With ZK Sync, we think that no snapshot has been taken yet. And just having that airdrop in your back pocket and be like, look, community got rewarded, everyone got a couple K for playing the game, we don't even need to do an own token, or if we want to, we can still do that. It's a pretty damn good position to be in.
I really like that thought. I'm just thinking about that more now. Like, I really, really like the idea. I mean, I personally, I still think that temptation to do their own would still exist. And I understand that, okay, if they got an airdrop, maybe you don't need to do your own. I think they would just work in conjunction with each other. Like, the fact that you can do all of this activity on ZK Sync and it will qualify you, that would be such a huge win for people who basically, that will not be on their radar. Like, for people at the moment, they're all focused on the game, they're focused on the PUDGY price and everything going on there, to then be told that you've just got this surprise airdrop, and ZK Sync is considered to be one of the premier ones going to come to market at some point in 2024. That would be absolutely genius, and really, really smart. And the thing that Kusho said that made me think that this could work in some really virtuous circle is the way that other gaming people have started to distribute tokens more recently, where, as if PUDGY Penguins don't have enough goodwill already, but you can obviously allocate tokens in a way where your holders get the most. But if the game or the world does go live in a very early stage and other people do connect their wallets who are not holders, they can be super incentivized to still play, still participate, and still get some type of allocation on their activity. One of the things I've been doing at the moment as part of the Mockaverse just activity, trying to get my points up there, has been to play this Pixels game that seems pretty cool. And I think there's going to be a Pixels token too. I was speaking to Confusion, who is in the audience about this, shared a really helpful video on how to kind of farm or just play this game and get your points up quickly. But yeah, similar principle, right? Like you don't need to be a holder to play the game and get points, but if you do, you're still going to get exposure to what the holders get already, and that's just a way to pour fire on that whole situation. Legendary, what are your thoughts on that kind of triple whammy of options?
Yeah, it's a genius position. Actually, one more aspect to add to it is layer 0. I don't know who it was who mentioned it. I think it was you, Kusha, last week, who mentioned that the pudgies can be transferred to different layer 2 solutions using layer 0, the layer 0 bridge, which again is another airdrop coming to holders who are using that functionality. So that will just be an insane amount of goodwill that you build with the community by doing that.
Absolutely. I mean, just talking about that out loud, it makes you think that they're just unbelievably well strategically placed in general, kind of for whatever direction they want to go, but particularly in the direction of a token, should they wish to do that. I did say, Sam, I think you came off mute. You might wanted to give some final thoughts. Would love to hear from you. And before we move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I mean, everything you guys are saying is interesting. You mentioned like, well, it also plays into the gaming plan, that the gaming thing, and that's hot. Like, if Grapes came out or Mochaverse came out and said, "Hey, we're gonna release a game tomorrow, and it's gonna be awesome, but there's gonna be no token," like none of these things would rally. They'd all tank. Like, I think people are like, the gaming thing kind of is the coin thing. In my view, and then like I think there's this idea that the games are going to just have the coins with them. So I think that those are one and the same. This is kind of separate from Pudgy Penguins because I think their brand is so strong, is so positive that they will make anything work. But one thing I'm broadly thinking, or just kind of like reflecting on a little bit, is with airdrops, like the Mutant Ape airdrop was incredibly successful and was great for Bored Apes. But like, come like 6 months later, pretty much every project started doing an airdrop. Like World of Women Galaxy was the absolute peak of that of World of Women, and it was basically down only for a year and a half after that. Like VFriends releasing VFriends 2, Doodles with duplicators, like Alien Friends with or Dead Fellas with their second, with Dead Friends. Like there was like a period where everyone was announcing these, and like there came a point in April of 2022, I remember very well because I started tweeting a lot of charts that really showed this, where everyone who did an airdrop, like you'd get a little bit of a rally into it, but then everything would tank right afterwards. And it like kind of became a meme that like you can't just like drop an airdrop. And I wonder if like it feels like we are entering a phase where it's like buy anything that has a token. But eventually I would think that like people can't buy tokens anymore. like eventually there's just not that money anymore, and we're definitely not there yet. I think we've only had one big NFT project that has done it, but today we got announcements of Pixelmon doing it, of Mochaverse doing it. Like we're going to be getting one certainly from Owning One Forest. Like pretty much everybody that like Horizon Ventures, like what they basically do is they go take NFT projects and launch tokens. So I feel like it's something I'm going to be watching. Is like, does this theme ever run out of gas? I mean, it inevitably will because there's only so much money, but like, when does it run out of gas? How long can it pump bags for? And like I said, I think Pudgy will be immune from this because Pudgy is such a strong brand that so many people want to be part of. But it's just something that like I'm kind of like intrigued by because we saw this happen with airdrops in 2022. Now the flip side is maybe like, no, you're selling to a totally new investor base, like people who want to buy tokens on Binance and other places. Like they're just going to pump your bags for longer than an NFT ecosystem where you're selling to the exact same people. But this is certainly something on my mind.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point. It does feel like the time frames between announcement and token as well is like you get the sense that people are trying to rush to the market to not be that last token when all the liquidity is maybe run out because it's been spread across all of these projects, hoping that the token is going to come. One question on that, Sam, to hear your perspective. I know Legendary and I have been speaking about this both in private and in public, but on the question of whether the liquidity runs out, is there a universe where the reason why it doesn't run out is because of the way the token design of when these tokens come to market is that they constrict the initial circulating supply so much and they come in with a initial market cap that is so low for their early investors that they all certainly make money, and there does seem to be an amount of liquidity to raise it higher simply because of the way that they've constricted the initial circulating supply, and then the FDV number obviously goes completely wild and is detached from reality because those tokens are just not available and in the pool to buy at the moment. Do you think there's any validity to that?
Could be, for sure. I mean, like I said, it's a totally different market that's buying the tokens a lot of time. You know, and market makers play a big role in the relationships that projects have with market makers. I think, you know, I don't fully have my head fully around it. Like at the end of the day, you need exit liquidity, right? Like you like, you know, I mean, even something like meme coin is still like hundreds of millions of dollars of circulating market cap. At the end of the day, you need someone to buy your token who thinks it's going to go higher, or in the case of market makers who are kind of getting paid to make markets around it. So, you know, I imagine that, I don't think we're that close to this, to be honest. I think it's still a ways away before these things stop like enriching holders. It's just kind of a theme that I have in my head. And perhaps what you're saying is like the reason that they're like, you know, that this will continue to enrich holders for a while. It just with airdrops, there just came a point where people were like, okay, like we lost money on the last one. Like the World of Women floor price went from 13 to like 7 at, you know, in like the week following.
Yeah.
The World of Women Galaxy was worth 1 ETH. So like just the net trade, like these shops ended up losing people money. And you know, at the end of the day, you need other people to pay for the things that you are getting enriched off of. So, you know, and at some point, just the market comes around to the view like this isn't great. But you know,
Sure.
I think that's still a long ways off. It's just something that like with this right now, there is this perception like token equals good, token equals money, like rush to buy anything that does it. And I think like that kind of narrative probably has a few more months, but you know, be interesting to keep track of. And like I said, I think Pudgies will largely be immune from this because of the strength of their brand and the number of people who like the brand who aren't NFT holders and may want other venues of access.
Absolutely. Definitely really worth bringing up. So thank you for bringing it up, and good for people to keep that in mind. And yes, the Pudgy brand, I think it's kind of a given that they will be immune. They are certainly one of the teams that are able to have that capability to drop the token because they've got that strength and all that goodwill behind them. That completely makes sense. Legendary, I think you wanted to go through some of the comments, give some shout outs, share some interesting thoughts just before we transition into the next segment.
Absolutely. Wanted to add a final point on that though first.
Sure.
So on the one hand, because if you blend those two things that the two of you just said together, they make so much sense. On the one hand, you have those token launches at such a slow circulating supply, at such a low market cap, that in this market it is bound to pump. You see that project and it has 1 million market cap, 2 million market cap that it starts with. I talked to a couple more projects who will launch a token. I'm not going to name names. And they similarly have, some of them have a market cap under $1 million. It's just absurd. You know it's not going to stay there. And you know if you get in on the token, whether that's the NFT or a pre-sale or whatever they are doing, it will pump in the beginning period. And as long as this narrative continues low market cap, token pumps, then you will take profits and put it into the next token that comes in and build that token Ponzi until the music stops playing, which eventually, of course, will happen. And similarly with Apes had that reputation of they could do anything, and money numbers go up. Everyone's printing money on that until it stopped. And then the market, not the whole market, but the NFT sentiment for Apes shifted. Other token airdrops became less and less successful. So I kind of do think that this artificially low market caps are a bit of a way to stretch that gaming token meta a bit longer than we would. And I also think that we kind of act like this is something revolutionary on the timeline. NFT that do a token has never happened before. It's exactly what we did in the last cycle. But also my learning is it doesn't matter that we did it before, because the narrative now is this is new, this is revolutionary, it's gaming plus token, it's so smart, it will do well. And this adds just fuel to the fire and it will happen until it will suddenly, very, very suddenly stop working.
Yeah.
I was going to just offer Milk as at least one counterexample. I mean, Milk has a fully diluted valuation of $350,000,
Wow.
and like less than some CryptoPunks have sold for it in the past month. Like the full, and Cool Cats just was in the Macy's parade and is a very successful brand. Like, yeah, obviously, the floor for Cool Cats went from 15 to below 1 ETH. So like, I think they had a ton of negative momentum over time, and this is a reflection of that. But like that was a tiny market cap, but right now the fully diluted valuation is $350,000 for one of the better brands, and also like the token was for a game that they built. So like none of these things are slam dunks. None of these things these are simply narratives that work until they don't.
Yeah, really good point.
100% agree. Yeah.
To be honest,
they work until they don't, until Beanie picks them up and says, "This is the most mispriced token that we've ever seen. It is absolutely a generational opportunity to pump my own bags." Then obviously the number will go up again.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just thinking that just sounds like Milk's pretty underpriced, to be honest, based on all these other things. But I guess, I mean, one of the final points on this before we want to switch into go through some of the comments and give some people some shout outs is that and Kobe wrote this article on this, and before I was doing some of the angel investments that I've done recently, I was just like reading all of these articles over and over again to try to, I don't know, just glean all of the learning that he's had over years of investing in this space. And one of the articles is called "The Scarcity of Attention," or like the how attention is the only real scarce commodity in this space. And yes, you can constrict a supply for a token if you want to, in order to try to artificially pump both the market cap and the FDV. But if you can't get the attention, then that's still going to be a losing battle. And maybe that's one of the final conclusions from all of that interesting conversation. So super interesting conversation. Let's leave it there though. Legendary, you want to go into some comments, and then we want to get into the Rug Radio news, which is pretty damn big as well. Want to give them their flowers as well.
Absolutely. We'll do what you did earlier in the show, which is giving Confusion a shout out on our discussion as to why the market corrected. Confusion commented, "The retracement on coins feels like it was due to a drop in BTC over the weekend, often an underlooked indicator." I followed up asking, "Do we know why BTC dumped?" Because I hadn't noticed anything. And Confusion, from his perspective, confirmed, I think, just some profit-taking, healthy correction before the next leg up. And also a shout out to Francisca, saying she is waiting for the pop berries to grow. So also in the Pixels universe. Love to see that.
Yeah, very funny. I'm just showing one of the comments on YouTube as well, which is that Crypto Mocus says, "I'm hearing Beanie pump Sugartown. Makes me sad that he still has that big of an impact." Alex Becker too. "I thought the space is matured, but it's still the same. I muted Beanie because I can't stand him." I find these comments sometimes quite entertaining because it's, well, it just shows me how polarizing Beanie is as a character, and how much of an effect he had on people, both positive and negative. But my perspective on this is always like, if someone is good, if I perceive someone to be good, or if I perceive someone to be bad, I try to stay as neutral as possible and just be like, well, I need to read the stuff, because if the person has influence, whether you think they're good, whether you think they're bad, man, you got to try to stay on top of it, irrespective of your personal feelings towards them. That's just one of the things I try to do. Legendary, do you have a thought on that as well?
100% agree. There's a lot of people I don't like in this space who have a lot of influence, and who I just who I have notifications on, because when they say something, it might be relevant for my own bags. I would only mute someone if I found their content like truly detrimental for my own mental health. Then fair enough. That's definitely more important than having read some of their posts. But yeah, there's a lot of influential people who are not very, very, very high in my personal opinion about them, but I still have the notifications on because it is impactful what they say.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds reasonable. Sounds very, very reasonable. Just before we get into the Rug Radio news, and we're going to run out of time because we've had such a awesome discussion on the Pudgy Penguin stuff. Want to bring you the Web3 roundup and the Creator Corner news so you can get up to speed with what else has been happening in the last 24 hours. Some funny stuff in here. Here we go. As always, in the snapshot pinned up top, Solana lead meme coin Bonk announces the 12 days of Bonkmas. As the initial Christmas Bonk airdrop anniversary nears, Bonk DAO wants to thank eligible Bonk supporters for their ongoing contribution and participation with a fun holiday celebration and rewards event. Check that out if you're into Bonk. And even if you're not, you want to probably have a read of that. It's quite funny. Number 2, Sugartown Auras run 80% after tweet from prominent investor Beanie. Next, Creeps and Mockaverse up around 30% each to go over a 3 ETH4. Prominent collector Dingalings swept a bunch of Mockaverses. The Pixelmon CEO reveals details about the Pixelmon token. He said that you guys know that a TGE depends as much on the roadmap as on the launch pad queue for the major exchanges. So they're kind of waiting to make sure that distribution goes well. On the creator side, Elon confirms video will be coming to X Spaces by the end of the year. This news was reported by NFT God. Interested to think about how all of us creators might try to implement that. And finally, Jack Butcher releases a Pepen Set 27 after the live creation at Art Basel event. I was there. Really, really cool event. Very, very fun to see Jack still doing his thing. Let's get into the final headline then, which is the Rug Radio news. Very, very significant, where 2 headline pieces of news for you to take away with you, and then want to hear your thoughts, Legendary, and anyone else who'd like to come in on this. So the first is that they have partnered with Decrypt, the news company that covers crypto and Web3. They've signed a letter of intent to merge with Rug Radio. So that's the merger aspect, to create a decentralized media company for Web3 creators. And then in addition to that, there is this partnership with Arbitrum, where they plan on building out the rest of their tech stack on Arbitrum. And the key thing from the announcement that I thought was super interesting was that both of these companies will live under an umbrella company that is innovating ad tech and creator distribution in ways never seen before. So it's not really a pure media company anymore. It's kind of getting into the ad tech as well. So that is super interesting. Ledry, want to come to you for your thoughts first, and then we'd love to hear from anyone else who wants to contribute.
Very, very quick thought on that, because I mostly agree with what you said. I think that people in this space in particular tend to underestimate the relevance, impact of media companies very, very frequently. It's definitely something to not overlook, especially not in the bull market.
I like the brevity. I like how serious that point came across by the fact you didn't have anything more to say. Yes, I completely agree. And just to give you some numbers, to put this into context, there's been some other crypto mergers recently. The Block, a crypto media outlet, sold a majority stake to Singaporean venture capital firm Foresight in a deal that valued the company at $70 million not so long ago. And some of the key numbers in here, I'm pretty sure I read some which were super interesting. Here we go. Rug Radio makes money partnering creators with advertisers. The company keeps 25% of transactions, while creators pocket the remainder. In 2023, Fernandez says the firm projects $3 million in revenue. It plans to break even next year. So that's just some of the numbers behind the scenes. I think, Sam, you had your hand raised briefly. Would love to hear your thoughts on this partnership.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of like what Farouk does, like people perceive Farouk a lot around his show and his energy, but he's actually in the back, like building, he has tons of relationships with advertisers, and a lot of people go to him. I mean, Thread Guy, is part of that Rug Radio group where, and he's been doing a lot with F1, and like Rug Radio is kind of in between there, where Rug Radio finds guys like F1 who want to partner and who want to get access to our audience and this massive group of people who spend a fair bit of money, which is NFT buyers. And Farouk will be in the middle there and be like, okay, F1 or Williams Racing Team, and I got this great influencer, Thread Guy who's got this personality, and he'll connect those guys. And like he's doing a lot of that in the background, and you know, I don't know, like that guy just hustles, you know, 16 hours a day. I've had him on the podcast. I go on his show a lot, and like I've like got to know for decently well. And I mean, that guy's just got what feels like caffeine flowing through his veins 24/7, even without the caffeine. And like I'm just like pumped to see this success for him, because I think for someone who puts that much in, and obviously, you know, he's somewhat polarizing, and you know, different people have different takes, but like what I see in that guy is just someone who works harder than anyone I know, and he brings tons of energy, and also like behind the scenes has like a very good business sense, a very good deal making sense. And when they talk about changing ad tech, like I think that's what they're talking about, like is this thing that they're doing in the background, connecting a lot of the people, you know, is like totally separate influencers with a lot of partnerships, you know, and you know, and it's actually, as he says from those numbers, 3 million in revenue this year is actually a pretty damn good business.
Absolutely. You mentioned, yes, he may be polarizing, but yes, at the same time, he's done so much work. And the thing, I mean, I met him for the first time in the last few days in Miami, and the thing I said to him was like, man, I really, really respect the hustle. As you just said, like at no point in this bear market that we've just been through did they stop in any way. They were even more determined, double down on everything that they were doing. And the other thing I wanted to praise him for, which I told him when I spoke to him as well, was that not only is your work ethic basically unrivaled, as you just mentioned, but secondly, I think he's managed to put a really smart group of people around him to help him push this whole thing forward. I think even back in 2021, when they partnered with Mando and OSF to like grow that show into a more consistent thing and combine those audiences, thought that was super smart. Have a lot of respect for Mando and OSF. And then also people like Quinn, who I know, who's working on the operational side, who has also spoken highly of some of their other hires. I think they've hired very well to make all of this possible. And I think what now an amazing achievement to be hitting 2024 with these new partnerships under their belt. A final point is that I think the lead investor is the guy who runs Consensus, who's the guy who basically has invested in all of the humongous projects. Like it's the MetaMask investor. It's a bunch of just a huge ETH, significant investor across various Ethereum protocols. So really caught the attention of the right people. Legendary, any final thoughts on that? Because I know, we have gone over time. Final reflections before we shut up shop.
Yeah, very much agree with what you and what Sam said, especially in not only building that front-facing media company, but on the back of it, building a very smart agency / middleman model / networking on steroids, which again puts you in a position that is very, very versatile, that has a lot of adaptability, similar to what we discussed about the pudgies, which I think is extremely relevant in a market and in an environment as volatile as crypto and Web3, that you don't get lost in a like super focused corner where you can't back out of it if the narrative or the trends change, but try to also have somewhat of a very agile and adaptable strategy.
Sounds good. A lot of positive things coming out of Art Basel. That was very, very nice to see. It was great to be there. Great to connect with so many of you. That was our show for today. Thank you to our contributors. Legendary, thank you for co-hosting with me. Thank you, Sam, as always, for the great, fantastic insight. Thank you, Kusho, as well, for your thoughts. And thank you to all of you in the audience for tuning in. We are very appreciative of your presence with us, and we will be back again tomorrow to bring you everything that goes on in the next 24 hours. Have a wonderful day. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.